Right. I thought the Trump train would just keep on going, that he'd be a really active
It'll keep on
figure.
going on.
I think the Trump train, is it derailed? I think
False.
it could be.
No.
Okay,
False.
go on. What
No.
are you thinking?
No, yesterday proved that it's going to keep on going. You think the people that were doing that are like the only people that like felt that way? Like there's tens and tens of millions of people who are like, I wish I was there sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk. First of all, I woke up late. Like I've been playing a lot of Rust, so like my sleep schedules, because I play with a guy from Finland and a guy from Australia, so I got to be on their wavelength. So I didn't wake up until like 5 p.m. and I wake up and my phone.
You missed the good stuff.
I look at my phone and it's just every person I know has messaged me. Are you seeing this? DC is nuts. Just one message after another of crazy shit. I'm like, all right, wake up, like CNN, let's go. And I see it, and it was. Look,
wild. I saw the funniest take about it from some just random person where they're like, when it was just made me laugh so hard. They're like, it was after they'd already got into the building, and they're like, this is like when you finish a level on a video game and it won't go to the cutscene. And so they're like, we took over is there like a puzzle box or something we need to find her? Is there one loading? And I was just like,
they were just roaming around. Yeah.
It's like a dog who caught the mail truck where they're like, I got it. And it's like, all right, now what? Like,
no, I kind of disagree with you there because, like, all right, so they went into Pelosi's office. They went through her emails. A guy from The Blaze has her emails, has been posting them. They stole the hard drives out of a bunch of people's PCs. Like lots of PCs had the hard drives pulled. That guy who's running
sure
with the
about that, I haven't heard 100%. Any of this.
Yeah, okay, it's the hard drives.
Okay,
one of the guy who has the podium and is running with it.
Yeah,
he's hilarious.
That is the funniest picture I've ever seen.
that was marching out. That was on photo.
Smiling.
I saw that on Photoshop battles, and someone photoshopped it to have Mitch McConnell still on it as he's running with it, and it's just I laughed for half an hour.
Just that guy's unbridled joy as he's like, like I got the podium.
The guy who has the like buffalo headdress on with the horns and the painted face.
Yeah, I saw that.
Up on like I don't know what you call it, the dais or whatever, like where the Speaker of the House stands to address all of Congress or whatever. Him up there flexing is hilarious. Now look, I don't want to. I'm conflicted on how I feel about what happened yesterday. Oh, the sanctity of our Capitol. It's like, yeah, the place where those greasy politicians get bribed to do the bidding of our overlords. Yeah. They're not. Those people aren't our representatives by any stretch of the imagination. No. Like those are not the good guys. And like it's hard for me to paint them in my mind as the good guys, so that I can thereby paint those people who storm in there as the bad guys. I don't like seeing them carrying a Confederate flag into the United States Capitol, though. That's nonsense. Yeah. You're starting to. Are we the baddies? Kind of thing is going on when I see that. I also don't like that people died as a result of it. That's terrible too. However, when I look at it from what maybe we have some information that we don't have here, but no,
is it an insurrection?
I like
sure.
Like
I don't care what they call it,
but also it was like the word of choice for every person that got up and spoke during the House and Senate hearings, after the whole thing got calmed down. But it's not a coup. Like it's an insurrection is a good way to describe it, and a mob. I guess they wanted to kind of like separate it as its own identity and not just say Trump's fans are literally storming the Capitol. Maybe that was their way of kind of like gray areaing it, but it wasn't a coup.
CNN doesn't gray area anything. They were like, well, he's clearly going to go down as the worst president ever. Like they're just.
That's how I feel though. I know it's
sure.
on me for that.
Historically, he is.
No. I think he probably is, but like by a few measurements, like I don't think you can hold the economy against him. But as far as someone who like held our flag high and made us look good to the rest of the world,
I don't like the way he lost, and I think that's really tarnishing. Like the way that he's going out, his attempt to overthrow the election by inciting a mob to take over the Capitol, I think will go down as a historically horrible moment in U.S. history.
I would have disagreed with you about like whether that is what happened if I hadn't watched this video like 15 minutes ago while we were doing the show of him and his family in what looks like a tent watching the insurrection or whatever you want to call it go down, and they're playing Gloria. like they're playing like upbeat pop music, and like everybody's just like, yeah, this is going pretty well here.
Yeah, it I don't know, when he went out there and said, you have to fight, you have to stop it, you'll lose your country if you don't go. And then he incited a mob to take over the Capitol. And I felt this way to a lesser extent because it's not the Capitol, but when BLM took over a police station, do you remember that?
I remember when they took over a state Capitol building.
True. But something about the police station.
Or Oregon, rather. The
Tucker's
police station was
right.
Minneapolis or something like that.
When they took over that, it was like it's like a military base in my mind anyway. A police station. It's filled with. It has an arsenal in it. I assume.
There's locked doors
based on Walking Dead.
There's like magnetically sealed doors,
doors that are very hard to open, right? And I think they set the thing on fire. Did they by using the gas on the outside? I'm probably 30% right on these facts, but they did. Like in a military sense, take over and control a police station. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, whoa, what? Like, that's real anarchy. That's serious lack of control. Like, you can't. It's one thing to sort of dominate a city block in the way that like happens after your basketball team wins the championship, right? Like that's one thing, and I'm kind of used to it. It's another thing for the police to flee in fear in their cars in this little police car parade, hoping to get out of there before the mob beats the police. Mobs don't beat American police, but I guess they do. Mobs don't take over the Capitol building. The Capitol building? You can't. The mob's supposed to lose there.
Kinetic rods from outer space. All
like an orbital cannon.
All of DC absolutely level. Baltimore, like
that'll show them.
Well, the president has authorized the use of the ion cannon.
I wanted to see it. I thought it'd be cool.
But he warns his people to get out of the building before he uses it. Yeah, no, again, our representatives are not that.
I feel the same way.
To call them representatives is an oxymoron.
Like I hate the politicians. I'm kind of with you there. But that's my building. That's my institution. Like, you're not supposed to take over the Pentagon. If they came in there and just did a mob, took over the Pentagon and started rifling through all the emails and leaving with the hard drives, you can't look. I can't remember a military action I really loved in recent history. Ever. But you still can't Pentagon, right? Like, that is a sign of
like. But
isn't it
building.
their Pentagon too?
Our Pentagon has to, get us into more wars.
I know. Yeah, we agree on this. I don't
want people to destroy the sanctity of the Pentagon by going there.
That's what I'm saying.
To depose South American dictators at will. And sure, we were friends with them. We gave them 4 and 8 up until 18 months ago, but he's a dictator now.
He's a madman, Taylor. Yeah.
Anyway, can you imagine how world-shattering that would be if people showed up to the Pentagon like this and they walked in and it was just like an H&R Block? Like, and it's like, this isn't very triumphant at all.
Yeah, I have a hard time feeling bad about any of this. I don't like the people died. That's not good. But I don't know. I don't side with the Capitol Police or the people who are in that building doing the voting. So and I certainly don't side with the guy wearing the buffalo headdress. I'm just an outsider. I feel like
on the buffalo headdress guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Wouldn't you love him as a guest? Wouldn't he be the best thing ever? Like he's like, you don't want me to wear the headdress though, right? My name's Steve. No. Your name's Buffalo Bill, and you're wearing that headdress.
He's a QAnon
hang up on
guy,
you if you
right?
take it
He's
off.
some.
He's QAnon.
He has a
QAnon
name.
Shaman.
Perfect.
QAnon shaman.
That's great.
Is he really a shaman?
That's his nickname. Is the QAnon Shaman.
That's his name. Yeah, the QAnon Shaman.
I love that.
Spells and wizardry.
He can teach you how to link everything to pedophilia.
Yeah. Everyone's a pedophile. And actually, turns out I was kind of right. So everybody, hey, this guy, broken clock right here, right twice a day. Oh, there's pedophile islands. Oh, Alex Jones has been saying that for 30 years.
Taylor, remember
right.
years ago, I guess the press was talking about Bugaboo all the time. And Taylor said something that kind of resonated in my head. He's like, oh, Bugaboo, they see him. If I have it wrong, is it not Bugaboo? It's close to that.
What is it about?
It's the people who are like trying to kill cops or something, but they're from the right.
Oh, Boogaloo. They would call him Boogaloo.
Boogaloo. Thank you.
The Boogaloo Boys.
They know me in these names. So Taylor, he phrased it funny. He's like, there's Boogaloo everywhere. Oh my God. Are they behind the bushes? Are they under the rock? There's always Boogaloo. That's how I felt about Antifa. That's how I feel now. The right is full on claiming that this was Antifa that overran the Capitol.
That's
that there
their
were
only
Antifa
play, though.
agitators.
They have no other play. They can't just be like, yes, they
that
did
Buffalo
in fact storm
guy.
the Capitol.
He's like a famous QAnon shaman. He goes to all these Trump rallies. They're saying that he's an Antifa person.
Like it was clearly MAGA. They're just like that guy, Matt Gaetz, the Florida guy. He was all of these Antifa people out there causing problems, framing Trump people. And it's like, no, you're just doing the exact same thing that the media did to run cover for BLM and Antifa, where they'd go, no, it wasn't that giant BLM Antifa riot where the police were having bottles thrown at them. It was a group of Boogaloo boys in there they infiltrated and it's like nobody's buying that, and nobody is buying right now that those weren't MAGA guys. They were obviously MAGA guys. They had MAGA.
Yeah, like it was like every single person there. The one downfall with apparently Trump's fans is that they cannot leave the home without 3 pieces of Trump branded merchandise on their person. So like they're breaching into Capitol, and I'm looking and I'm like, well, he's got a Trump hat on. Like, this guy's got a Trump scarf. Yeah, like it's gonna be really hard to spin this as a dark net infiltrated. Now like they whipped up a whole bunch of feral hogs to go storm the Capitol.
If I could go back to one date, it would be Bitcoin, obviously, be a retired 100 millionaire by now. But a second date, I would go back to before Trump announced he was going to be president, and I would buy up every domain that had to do with Trump t-shirts and every domain that had to do with anti-Trump t-shirts, and I might be richer than if I had gone back and done Bitcoin. Like, that would have been the ultimate play. And there's some guy out there, or a couple guys out there who did that and are...
What is this sign?
I don't know. Like Kyle said, it's not that I love these politicians, but that's... you're not supposed to be able to kick America in the balls that easily. And
I'd have felt better if they just burned the building down.
Then we could have had a cool new one.
It's a cool one now.
We could have made a Topgolf.
Okay, that's a good point.
That's a way. Imagine how much leverage we would have with foreign leaders if it's like, hey, you want to come stay at the White House? Actually, I'm sorry, it's been converted into a Topgolf.
Trump
I will
say,
like,
if I get fired,
very much.
It's a Topgolf.
I would like to come to your.
I think one of the differences, like between this and the BLM protests, nobody tried to start a fire. Nobody tried to hurt anybody. It seemed like when they came in, because like they had that cop cornered, right? They could have murdered that man if they'd wanted to. That wasn't the crowd's intent. It seemed like it was an occupation force. They was like they just wanted to be there to like kind of like have themselves heard, right? Like they stole things, but they didn't destroy things other than the windows they had to break so they could get deeper into the building.
Well, you need to excise the windows.
They weren't breaking the windows for the sake of breaking windows. They just had to get deeper into the Capitol building so they could get to Nancy Pelosi's office.
They didn't even knock over the velvet ropes for some reason.
What are you talking about? Did you not see the pictures inside? The whole building is trashed.
That is true.
But they didn't
Trashed
break
the
anything.
entire... What do you mean? They trashed the entire...
No, but
I don't know. All I see is burning down gas stations in Minneapolis. And
Kyle's
Detroit.
projecting like his bias on this thing. You know what? They just orderly walked in there. They didn't break anything. They didn't have to. It was really sweet, and it was kind of, they were practically tour guides.
They only messed things up because they had to know what to steal.
Like you had to rifle around and find the valuables.
Every bit of things that you had to be industrious,
I'm just saying, don't they get some credit for not burning the place down?
Kyle's I love it when you infiltrate the Capitol building, but I draw my line when you start looting Starbucks. I swear to God, the sanctity of the Starbucks can never be violated.
Am I the only one? So here's one of the things I don't like about what happened. I felt like our Capitol building was secure. I thought it was protected. I thought it would be hard to overrun. It is surprising to me that a bunch of can just walk in and the police will pull the barriers back and let them take over Congress. They stopped the presidential, delayed, I should say, the presidential electoral counting. They delayed it by 4 hours, 6 hours, something like that.
More. It didn't happen till 3:30 in the morning.
I know. I was up watching it. It was
don't know what would have happened otherwise, but I think they shut it down for 4 or 6 hours or something. But it should be harder to take over the U.S. Capitol than that. It should be really difficult. The Chinese shouldn't be able to do it, let alone a bunch of redneck cosplayers.
The Chinese would never be able to slowly walk up into the Capitol building. They'd all be shot the second
If they wear
step
MAGA
one.
hats, they can.
Yeah.
I always thought there would be some. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that this is the biggest thing that I was taking away from this all was like, it was funny to me until they actually just walked in. And my thought was like, how big of balls do you have to think that like I can, with impunity, break the window of the Capitol building and climb in and then start walking around the chamber? Like every alarm bell in my head is like, you're going to get shot. You're dead. You can't do that. Don't do that. When you are doing school trips, because I grew up in Baltimore and we go down to DC every year, like you'd get yelled at for taking your phone out in the Treasury. Right. And like somebody be like, hey, no phone. I was like, Jesus. All right. I'm sorry. But these
I'm addicted.
Turns out those cry bullies aren't so tough when some grown men show up. They run and hide.
Somebody told me, he was like, they had friendly fire turned off. It was something like 83% of police officers when surveyed for the Hillary versus Trump election chose Trump, right? I feel like there's definitely a non-zero sum of people that were like, what do you mean you're going to make me fight back against my cousin? Like, I can't do this. And they're just like,
Yeah. Have you seen the videos of them pulling the metal barriers back?
I thought, but
probably.
Look at the one I just posted. This is great.
I thought there would be a lot
angle
more
from the
booby traps. Like I thought there would be like booby traps, like actual
Booby trap.
Well, maybe not booby traps, but like some
Temple of Doom.
I thought that there might be like well, first of all, like the clip I saw that Woody referenced, like I was like, damn, how did they like storm in? And then I watched the clip and it was like,
dude,
an officer just moved the barrier and it was just like, and then people just were like walking as though they were like looking at new stores in a shopping area. Like, they got to build a bear. Oh, fun.
Yeah,
no, I'm not rushing to get to the Capitol. I'll just take a leisurely stroll.
Tucker, do you want to say something?
I was going to say the one where they're opening the gates. I don't think we see where they go after the gates are opened, which led me to think that maybe they were opening the gates because they were going into a courtyard that would be easier to control than the choke point. But the TikTok video of the main steps where like a couple people get through and then everybody just goes, that's the one that's shocking to me because like the police just kind of give up. Like the barrier gets moved and like, you guys have the Capitol now. It was like...
So I have all this unconfirmed information. Like they wanted to call the National Guard in and Trump said no. And then eventually Pence said yes. Have you heard that?
Pence can't say yes to that. So it was the Secretary of Defense is the only one that can mobilize the National Guard outside of Trump. And he can only do that when Trump is not reachable. So some idiots were on Twitter being like, the 25th got invoked. Like, no, it didn't. Trump didn't exercise the guards. The Secretary of Defense was like, all right, we need to do it, so we're going to do it. We're not going to ask for permission for Trump or anyone.
Destiny.
Fictitious.
Yeah, what's
just
up?
like the
hypothetical argument. I'm going back to this insurrection thing.
Yeah.
Dude breaks a window. This is hypothetical. Goes in. They obey the velvet rope lines for some reason, and they put their feet on a congressman's desk. What's the punishment? What does King Destiny lay down for someone who had that level of civil disobedience?
They have to tongue bath the desk where they put their feet on it. And then tongue bath because that's also gross.
That's a really, really, really hard question to answer. On the most emotional, the emotional take is that like they should all be tried for literal fucking like attempted coup, treason, sedition, whatever crazy shit for trying to disrupt like the democratic process of putting in a new leader. Okay. The more measured take is that like you've got a bunch of people brainwashed in some crazy fucking cult that think that Nancy Pelosi is fucking Dominion execs to make machines like spit out wrong votes or some shit. Like these people are so clearly far gone. You just like charge them with trespassing, and unless they did some actual fucked up shit, then fuck it. I think you just charge what sticks. If somebody stole some shit from the Capitol, then charge them out the ass for it. You know, if it was a federal computer, then for attempted theft of federal property or whatever, charge them with whatever you can. But the whole going extra over and over and over again, I just think it doesn't. Fuck it.
Yeah, that's pretty balanced. I've thought about it myself, and like, my emotional argument was like, Kyle said he never felt like that was his building, right? So when he said the Capitol was down, I felt the opposite. I felt like, it was harder to do that, right? The joke is, I'm no longer impressed with Nicolas Cage's ability to steal the Declaration of Independence. It turns out that you could just walk in there if you've got a big enough group, and they pull the gates aside and wave you in. And
Yeah. Did you
I
see that
was-
side video where some cop just opened the door
I
on
have
the
seen
side?
that. Yeah. Now there were
Just real quick,
protesters
all of
behind
those
him.
videos, all of those videos are fake. Just as a heads up. Almost
they-
every single day one video is totally misrepresented. So there were plenty of shots, like even in that one where they're letting the protesters in, the camera pans out. That barricade is blocking nothing. There were people all around, like behind and everything. Even as that very shot pulls back, you see there's another protester like behind it. Like police were just
There's a
moving
protester filming it
exactly.
who's
yeah.
obviously on the other side of the barricade as they watch it get pulled away. And I'm like, how many people are on that side? I don't know. Maybe. So anyway, my emotional thing was Secret Service goes in there, they point the gun at their head, they say, put your feet down. If they don't, they pull the trigger, right? Like, that was my, like, because you're not supposed to be in the Capitol. You're not supposed, it's a coup. It's treason. It's wild to go in there and try and prevent the rightful president from, getting the next job. All right. So, but it was like, all right, you don't actually want that, right? You don't actually want that. These people may not have, a lot of them did have coup on their head, right? They wore Civil War hoodies to the thing. They brought Confederate flags. They did with it. But a lot of these guys, that's overkill. That's stupid. You're going too far. And I was like, you know what I think a guy should get for that? 4 weeks. 4 weeks. I kind of like that. That's a life disruption. It's a punishment. It's probably not life changing. It's as life changing as an automobile accident where you're not hurt. Like it's a financial penalty that you have to sort of come back from, and then you're okay. And you won't soon forget it, but.
Yeah, they're talking about decades of prison.
Yeah. Well, people are talking about that. Trump talked about that. He said he put a monument protection law in there that anyone who...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If people got charged for that, that would be extra ironic.
Trump did. So during the BLM protests, Trump put a 10-year minimum for people who desecrate monuments or something like deface. Yeah, because they were like graffitiing courthouses and stuff like that.
Has that been used yet? Like, has that happened to anybody?
I don't think
yet?
I don't know how they're charging people. Like, they're kind of saber rattling now about how hard they're going.
At all. Like Trump's rule of the 10 years for statues. Like, has that? Because obviously a bunch of statues have been vandalized. Like, has anybody gone away for it?
Oh, I don't know. But I think Trump executive ordered it or something. Like, it's a thing. And now it's his supporters who are doing it en masse. And I don't think he saw that coming. The narrative was always like, watch how peaceful we are. We pick up our own trash. We're the good protesters. And that changed. So, like, what do I actually want? I think 4 weeks. For people who go in there and, like, do shit, go into the offices and put their, like, I don't know. If you steal a hard drive from Nancy Pelosi's computer, that's bad. You're not supposed to do that.
One of the things that makes me wonder, though, the argument that I could see pushing me to the other end of this, and I just haven't thought much about it because there's so many other things to think about right now. What if they would have gotten into like a body of lawmakers? What if they would have gotten into a room with a whole bunch of Congress people? Like, could we have theoretically seen for the first time in U.S. history, like a whole bunch of fucking lawmakers getting held hostage and killed by protesters?
The zip ties, the gallows they constructed. They were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Hang Pelosi.
And then when I think about it on that end, like, why are U.S. citizens overthrowing the Capitol during our election process? Like, we're a literal laughing stock. It's probably one of the most embarrassing moments in recent history of this country. It's like unbelievable.
Right? The Capitol's not supposed to fall.
Yeah. The double ironic twist is that is that it looks like, but it looks like, I say this cautiously, unless a bombshell is released, it looks like the reason why federal troops weren't there is because the mayor, the MPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the Capitol Police specifically didn't want any federal presence there because of what happened last time, because they were worried that more federal troops would incite violence. And it looks like the blame might actually fall on, I know the head of the Capitol Police already resigned, and even the mayor, for specifically rejecting help over and over and over again because they were worried about repeating like a Lafayette Square where federal troops are out gassing protesters, and they didn't want that look, which is like triply ironic. So
I read the opposite. That guy that resigned specifically requested National Guard help, and he didn't get it.
Let me be very, very clear here, because there's a lot of this gets thrown around. So one, the MPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, not the Capitol Police, they requested help from the National Guard, but the help that they requested was 320 or 370 unarmed, no riot police to help with like traffic and stuff. So that happened, but specifically non-riot police officers. And then the other request that people talk about was that during the day of a few hours after the riots had like broken into the buildings when they were requesting help from the National Guard. At that point, the chain of command got very fucked. And there was, I don't know if they denied the request or it was just who the chain of command. There were a lot of arguments about like who was responsible for this. Like, do we have authorization to go in or not? I don't think it was a specific, we're not going to help you, fuck off kind of thing. I don't think it was specifically that going through. There's a whole bunch of people that have posted big timelines on this, and that doesn't appear to be the case.
Yeah, like I'm reading quotes right now. I am making an urgent, immediate request for National Guard assistance. I have got to get boots on the ground.
Yes.
And
they
then,
had no contingency plan for
and
that.
they said, I don't like the visual of the National Guard standing in a police line at the Capitol in the background. And they're like, the situation is dire. Literally, this is a guy on the phone crying for help. It's burned in my memories, right? They're going back and forth, and they're like, hey, I want to be clear. Are you denying my request for help? And he said, I'm not denying it. I'm just not the guy who can authorize it. Like
exactly.
To your
because
point.
there was so much confusion because, and again, they specifically rejected having contingency plans in place. And I think a lot of it was they were worried that Trump would send in federal troops and it would look bad. So they're like, we're going to deal with this on our own. And I think that actually came back to bite them in the ass.
I look forward to it coming out because I've seen it presented in a different way. They were almost like, we want to have people here, and they're like, no, we like not having people here. And you say no, but I feel like it's not known yet. Like it's still
the reason why I would put money on this right now. I would bet you against it right now. The reason why I know that's not the case is because if those requests were being made and rejected, two things would have happened. One, it absolutely would have leaked because Trump has one of the most leaky administrations of all time. Somebody would have leaked. MPD and Capitol Police make big requests. Trump shoots them down. It would have leaked 1 million%. Number one.
It has already.
Number two, what?
It has. They said they were trying to get Trump's help and they couldn't. Why couldn't they get it? Because Trump was watching it on live TV and not taking calls.
No. That was day of, though. I'm talking about preparation. In preparation, they didn't make any requests because this stuff is negotiated because they knew about this like weeks in advance.
In preparation, they said, hey, we're not asking you to be here. We're asking you to, quote, lean forward and be ready to get here if anything happens.
I don't think that happened, though. That's the thing. Because the second thing I'd say is that if requests were being made for them to be ready to go in and they weren't doing that, then the mayor would have been complaining on social media. And all over the country, we would have heard. Because you have to keep in mind, the FBI was already on the ground making arrests in preparation for this vote counting thing. Remember that Proud Boys guy was arrested. Like the FBI had tips and everybody was on the up and up of this. If they were begging the National Guard and the federal government to be ready, like please be ready with troops. And they were like, we're not going to do shit. You better believe Mayor Bowser would have been on Twitter, Trump fucking us over. Everybody would have tweeted it out. He's not providing help. It was radio fucking silence because they didn't want any federal presence there. That's what I think. And I think that seems to be what's played out so far, but we'll see.
Yeah. We've probably done too much politics already, but yeah, I guess I'm reading that. I'm just looking through this. There is a lot of day of asking for. I don't have no counters to your like preparation side, but I'm not sure that not responding to the day of makes everybody innocent either.
I just think leadership was
chaos, cloud of war type stuff.
Yeah, the leadership fucked up. They should have been prepared for it. They totally dropped the ball. The reason why I like to focus on that is because like a lot of people are saying that like so the cops let them in. It was a bunch of racists. If this was BLM, it would have happened. Bullshit. I think that every cop that was there did the best they could. There were like when you get macro shots of this, you've got like this is like Left 4 Dead tier shit. You've got like 40 cops standing against like an army of like fucking 1,000 protesters. Like what do you want them to do? Like people were showing like videos of like the like initially like, oh, look at that black cop. Like he's just walking them up the stairs. Like it's one cop running away from like 30 people by now.
That'll calm it down. Yeah.
They were totally unprepared for this. And it's a travesty. And I think it obfuscates the issues to have people starting to say like, oh, it's just racist cops that let him in. That just bothers the fuck out of me.
Yeah. That seems pretty unrealistic and silly.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So Destiny. Was it a coup attempt? Was it just a riot? Was it Trump's doing? Was it contrary to what Trump really wanted? What was your take on that?
So I think that it's really silly to get fixated on the words that we use because people will get like hyped up on falling into what these words mean. And then the whole conversation devolves into that. So like, for instance, if we were to say like, well, this was a coup. Somebody might say like, well, it's a coup because they tried to stop like a democratic process of an elected leader and they wanted to install their own leader. But then somebody else might counter, well, was it really a coup? They didn't seem very organized. They didn't have top-down direction. They didn't have widespread enough support from the leader directly. Like, so like, I think that like getting into like, was it a coup and blah, 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 I think is like dumb because then people just argue all day long about like what the definitions are and what you need for something to be considered like a terrorist action or a coup, blah, blah, blah. But I think that if we were to speak like broadly, I think it looks like a coup to me. Yeah, there wasn't like direction from Trump, but you clearly have a lot of people that are so far removed from reality that they can't comprehend that maybe their candidate lost, and their goal is to subvert the democratic process by any means possible. First, it was misinformation from Trump. Then it was misinformation in the media. Then it was misinformation in the alternative media. Then it was misinformation from Giuliani. Then it was misinformation from in the lawsuits, and then it was misinformation of the Supreme Court. And then it was misinformation about how Pence could overturn the election. And like at every single, then it was misinformation about how senators could object at every single stage. And all the processes, as stupid as they were, and as much of a fucking waste of time they were, every single process was followed from start to finish. You know, they had their time in the media. They had their time on social media. They had their time in the courts. They had their time in front of the Supreme Court. They had their time in the Senate. You know, Trump called Pence a pussy. And at the end of the day, they lost at every stage of the way. And then it seems like at the end, it's like, well, fuck it. If reality isn't going to bend to what we want it to, then we're just going to break into the Capitol and force you guys to do what we want, which kind of feels like a little bit of a coup to me. But
is that confirmed that he called Pence a pussy?
I mean, it's reported, and it seems to fall in line with everything else Trump has said. But
I hope he did.
I feel like you let Trump off the hook pretty easily, and like they didn't have support from the top. Like Michael Cohen testified, and he said Trump speaks in code, which makes it sound really complicated. But this code isn't hard to decode. He says things like, "You know what, Taylor? It sure would be nice if when you looked at General Flynn, you found him not guilty of anything and just just stopped it here." Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not pressuring you. I'm just saying it would be nice if it happened. Sure, that would really lighten my day up. That would make me smile. And you get the message, right? That's not a hard to decode code. When he says, look, you guys are going to lose your country if you don't march right down there to the Capitol and fight. People are like, he didn't say to like break windows. Right?
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that like it's not like Trump was communicating with a few guys on the ground being like, if you get into the Capitol, I'll get the military there to help you. And like that's what I mean when it wasn't like official code. And Trump absolutely has the messaging though. Those people were there because of his irresponsible messaging year after year after year after year. 1,000,000%. I'd never disagree with that. 100%.
I think I caught some Fox News the other night, which I don't often do, but they did a montage of things that Democrats have said leading up to and during the riots of last summer. And a lot of it was way more inflammatory than what anything Trump's ever said. Like the stuff that Maxine Waters said about taking Trump out and what people were saying about blowing up the White House. And, if you see anyone who's a member of this cabinet, get in their face and push up on them and, don't give them a job. And if you see them at the gas station, get after them. And I want to go
to when they were locking children up in cages at the border.
Yeah, following the Obama tactics.
That's not true.
No, Obama didn't make those cages.
That's
himself.
Obama didn't fill those cages.
Yeah, that's right. It's like they had this thing.
So we were using Obama's cages. So just so we're all clear.
See,
I mean, there is a distinction to be drawn there. I mean, like we had some immigration policy, but listen, at the end of the day, you can't feel bad for them. You can't, like when you're on record saying like shithole countries, Mexicans are rapists, blah 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 blah, and then you start stuffing kids in cages. It's going to look a certain way. I mean, you really have no one to blame but yourself.
The Obama cages, yes.
The empty Obama cages that were filled with the Trump separated at the border families. I mean,
I'm glad you pointed out that they were empty. Obama not following through with anything really.
All that wasted money on cages.
All that wasted money on cages. Another liberal spending bill of just an empty cage. It's a perfect analogy for the democratic process. Yeah. Thank you.
True.
Cages built, but not filled. Trump comes in, businessman doing business, fills those cages to the brim. Kids are leaking out the top.
Gotta get shit done.
So many kids that we're having to sell a few to child predators.
People will draw these comparisons between like people saying like we need to take Trump out, blah 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 blah. I mean, like you can play the whataboutism all day, but to try to deny that like Trump has had a clear top-down message of undermining the integrity of our system from day one, and to try to compare that with some vague things that Democrats have said about like we need to take Trump out, blah 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 blah, when Trump is literally on stage saying like, well, maybe the Second Amendment guys can do something about Hillary. Like, I think that those equivocations are hilariously not true. It's not even close to the same level. Like, we don't have like Democrats mailing fucking, what was that one guy that was mailing pipe bombs to fucking like Soros and Democratic politicians and shit?
Mm-hmm.
email to CNN, stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah, the messaging and the undermining of the democracy. To be clear, I'm not against like all forms of protest, but like when you're the president and you are undermining our democratic system at every single step of the way, like, dude, like there are people around the world in China and Russia that are just rolling around laughing that like our head of state could do more damage to the integrity of our system than some random Democratic lawmaker on the news, calling for like, oh, we need to get Trump out, we need to take Trump out, blah, 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 blah.
After protesters burnt down that police station, Kamala Harris said, they're not going to stop. They're going to be forewarned, be afraid. They're not going to stop. This isn't going to stop, and they shouldn't stop. I think there's some equivocation to be drawn.
But it's not look, like in terms of like, we're talking about like nationwide protests. We're talking about like the BLM riots. We're talking about like protest cops. And then you have on the other end, Trump saying 3 million people illegally voted in the last election. The Dominion voting machines are counting votes in Germany, like just patently not true things that leave no room for interpretation, like saying that like the election has been stolen. Again, like you can walk through like every Democrat like soundbite that you can get over like the riots, but to say that there was like as clear a call, and the thing is too, is that like we keep hearing like how dangerous and deadly all these things are. Well, where the fuck is like where was that? Like in all of the BLM riots, and like this is the most rioting we've ever had in the entire history of the country. I think around the same number of people were killed as like the LA riots. Not a single cop got killed. I don't remember any cop killing a protester. I don't think
so either. Oh, yeah. I know there were some grievously wounded protesters.
Yeah, there was that, sure. But then in one assault on the Capitol, we get a dead cop, we get 4 or 5 dead protesters. Like,
well, conservatives are more effective at virtually everything. I agree with you there. I'm glad you made that point. But I completely agree that like it's very different. And when we initially talked about this on the last PK, obviously you weren't here, but I was a little bit softer on the protesters because at that time we were unaware of any police officers being killed. And what we were hearing was that maybe one had accidentally tased himself and had died from that. And I have a hard time being sympathetic to that. But then I saw this video of like the protesters at the Capitol, the mob, whatever the fuck you want to call them, beating a cop to death on video with an American flag. And I was just like, all right, I'm out. Can't defend that. There's no defense for that. You murdered a cop with an American flag. I am nowhere near your side of this argument anymore. Like, this is not what I thought happened, because all the news footage I had seen was Capitol Police moving barricades aside and people walking into the Capitol. And then afterwards, this footage came out of people breaking the exterior windows out with riot shields that they brought and then crawling in and
the initial
then beating that cop to death.
Looked a lot different than the coverage from a day or two later, right? Initially, there's
Twitter
that
videos.
cute guy with the podium. There's the guy who's cosplaying as a buffalo.
It's funny.
Or something.
It's funny, frankly.
There's the guy with his feet on the desk, which is like super disrespectful. But if that's your team, it's really cool, right? If that's your team.
Can I ask you a question? Like,
yeah.
I know that you're more on the blue side, certainly than
against
I
Trump
am a lot of the time.
Carry on.
But like, Mitch McConnell's not my guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
I hate Mitch McConnell, but he's like a necessary evil in some regards to like keep the balance of the force, right? Like, you need a Satan for there to even be a good, right? There has to be some evil for there to be some good. So like, you want people on either side with differing opinions so that one side just doesn't go way off to the left and or right sometimes. Do you have any do you identify with or sympathize with or like people like Nancy Pelosi, for example?
That was coming.
I love Nancy. Oh yeah.
I feel
Defender.
like I don't know what's so bad about her policies. I do see her as like an effective creature of Washington.
You know something else about her is she has huge tits, and you can tell they were huge when she was little. Like not when she was younger, like 20s.
Looking for this now.
Yeah, tell us what you find.
Family OnlyFans.
Like when they wanted to impeach him, she was the one that sort of put that process together. When Trump shut down government, Trump kind of lost that argument. He looked worse in the public eye. And I think that's because Pelosi is navigating these politics better than Trump did.
Oh, yeah.
And big, huh? And share something. Give us a link.
Yeah, I'm looking for a better pick than what I found.
Asking for a link from Kyle. Never mind.
Yeah, because right now I've just got like modern Nancy Pelosi, but just wearing something that shows that she got some jugs.
Yeah. So, but like, I don't know. I feel like she's not even pitching her own policy. She's just working on behalf of Democrats, maybe the same way that Mitch does. Maybe there's
Well, like the thing is that like politics is so much more complicated than a lot of people give it credit for. Like people will look at a national poll saying like, oh my God, people support Medicare for all, 52%. But what they don't realize is that like that might be like 82% support in New York and like 25% support in West Virginia. So when it comes to talking to individual lawmakers at the end of the day to figure out what they support, not every single person can be on the most extreme left policy that you have. And that's why Pelosi gets shit on a lot by people on the left because they don't understand, why can't you just make every single Democrat vote for the most like be AOC? And it's like, well, because we lose every single fucking seat if we did that. Like, you can't do that, you know?
True. Yeah, AOC goes too far for me. I in particular, I like detest the idea of paying off student loan. Like,
it's a whole other thing, but it is actually the worst idea ever suggested in history. Everything that anybody in this audience thinks they know about student loans is just completely and totally wrong. It's unbelievable. Like,
I found this Photoshop. I just wanted to be clear that I know it's a Photoshop.
The net spending that people spend on education today is about the same as it was in 2001. A lot of people don't realize that. Like the value of a college degree, like the time it takes to pay off an average 4 years bachelor degree, is like about as low as it has been, like lower now than it has been like in the history of the US. Like the amount of debt that's being held right now, 55% of that debt is held by people that are going after graduate degrees, like upper, like middle class people.
I have heard that. That really convinced me a bunch. Where like someone laid it out where they're like, basically what you would be doing is upping taxes on working class people who couldn't afford to go to college so that money could be applied to a post-grad person who's probably from a rich family.
That's my argument.
Fuck that. That's it's bullshit.
Even if it's just undergrad school. These are still the upper crust of society in general, right? Now, I know there's some guy out there with a degree that didn't lead to a job, but if you went to college, I say this all the time, your workplace injury rates are lower. Your pay rate is higher. Your unemployment rate is lower. Everything about your job is better. You probably work in air conditioning if you went to college. And now you're asking some carpenter to pay off your loans? Fuck you. Exactly. Stop complaining about how hard things are for you.
The median wage difference between like high school is like 32,000 or 34,000. The median wage for like a 4-year degree is like 58,000. It's ironically in a paradoxical twist. College education is one of the biggest drivers of wealth inequality in our society because 4-year degrees confer such a massive wage premium to you that it's unbelievable. It's why people push for things like trade schools and associate schools, because we have to bridge that gap, because not everybody can go to college and get a 4-year degree. And if you can't, you're fucked. And the idea that some motherfucker wants to walk out of college earning $75,000-$80,000 a year and is crying about his like $25,000 a student, like, dude, pay it back. You got your job. It's fucking worth it. Like, pay it back. You're fine. Like, Jesus.
The reason people go to college is because it's still a good investment. So that I don't like about AOC. If there's something I do like about AOC, it's that I feel like she's always operating from a place of goodness. Even if I think she's wrong, I think that she's trying to do what's right. And I can't say that about all politicians. I can't say that about Trump. I think Trump does a whole lot of shit because it's good for him personally. There's this, it seems like there's example after example of Trump just, I don't know, diverting military flights to Scotland so that his golf course has a better airport support. We're paying more to refuel planes now so that his golf course has the airport nearby. It doesn't go out of business, right? That's Trump shit. AOC, all her shit is like, I don't know, self-sacrificing, death threats, etc. Or even if it's not, she thinks she's doing a good thing. I don't necessarily agree with this policy. She's probably against guns. We're not going to agree there. She's definitely for paying off student loans. I don't agree with her on a whole bunch of her left shit, but I do like that, you know, she's trying to do what's right, and I don't think that's true of all of them.
I don't think that's true of the overwhelming majority.
The overwhelming majority. I think what we really need is term limits, like really concise term limits, like 2 terms, like make it like the presidency.
Wait, why?
Because I think that they become creatures. I think that they make a entire career out of being a representative, and they just get bought off. Like the main point that I was making last week when I was just like didn't give a fuck that somebody came in and desecrated my capital. Is like, that ain't my capital. That's fucking Pfizer's capital. That's fucking Microsoft's capital. That's like Big Oil's capital. Like those people are all a bunch of fucking corporate shills. They're in no way voting in my best interest. They're voting in their own best interest 100% of the time.
So they care way more about what Facebook thinks of them.
I also don't think it should be. I don't think it should be a paying gig at all. They shouldn't make a dime, and they shouldn't be able to make a dime.
No, because then only really rich people will be able to do it.
So this is something that like people talk about this all the time, and everybody will fight against this, and it feels so fucking wrong. But like, honest to God, if you want to see why politicians do the things that they do, you honestly just need to look at who's voting. The idea that like corporations are dramatically changing the course of what politicians might otherwise support is actually just completely and totally untrue. A lot of people will talk like this big talk about how politicians represent like other companies and politicians, blah, 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 blah. But then like when you actually look at how people behave, like it's actually not true at all. Like
so
people
the COVID
say, oh,
relief
like,
bill had extra enforcements against live streaming, right? Pirating content.
Correct.
Yeah.
But like you phrase it in
that's
that
based
way.
on the voters? You think the voters were like, you know what? We need harsher punishments for people who share UFC streams.
If you talk about it that way, sure. But if I say the COVID relief bill is going to include more protections for creators that are going to make it so that this unprecedented age of the internet isn't allowing people to steal and pirate their content, like how China abuses our intellectual property so that the rightful creators of that content can profit off of it. Well, now it sounds like more, right?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good argument. I like
Yeah,
that.
and this is how a lot of stuff goes. Like people, so for instance, like earlier we were saying like, oh, they just represent big oil. Like fucking Americans represent big oil. You know, like I lived through, it was sometime in the 2000s when gas started to get crazy, $4 or $5 a gallon in a place where this never fucking happened before. And Americans will cry about the cost of gas while the most popular selling vehicles in America are F-150s and Chevy Silverados, you know, and all of these, even unions will say like, oh, we need unions to protect the environment. Man, fucking fossil fuel unions aren't sitting out here, asking for the environment to be protected. I'm in California, and to the south of us, there's like the largest, most cost efficient energy per kilowatt of a solar farm ready to be turned on. And the only reason it hasn't been turned on yet is because the state hasn't negotiated with like the local fossil fuel workers to protect their jobs, because they're all going out of business as soon as they flip the switch on that plant.
A lot of that's true, but like you can definitely point to enormous things that like the majority of the population votes for, like
what?
Like high immigration, not good for middle class wages. It's not. It causes wages to stagnate, and people don't want that. And so if you were just going by what the average person was voting for, most of them are middle class, and when they see their wages stagnate for years and years, decades and decades, they don't like that. And like they're not being represented at all. So clearly people like the Koch brothers and big business, who do benefit chiefly from low cost labor, H-1B visas, they get the benefit.
People say this, but it's just not true. People will say like, who benefits from high immigration? Like nobody wants that. People will say out one end, I want American jobs. I don't want all this bullshit. And then they go and they shop at Walmart and Target, and they buy things that are made for $2 in some factory halfway across the world. Or they'll say shit like, I don't want there to be massive immigration. Like it's bullshit. All these cheap workers come in. But then when we say like, oh, cool, well, let's raise the minimum wage so we can pay American workers money. Like, no, fuck that. Wait, hold the fuck. Wait, what? I don't want to pay people money. So, well, then you want to bring immigrants to work for them. People will make the same claim that like immigration is destroying local job markets, but our unemployment before the coronavirus was like 3.25%, which is lower than it should be. We want to keep unemployment at around 5% for some frictional unemployment. The idea that like people are opposed to immigration, it's kind of like when people say things like, I'm opposed to getting fat, and then they'll eat like all this fucking food and they'll get fucking fat, and they'll be like, I voted against
now
fat.
I'm feeling personally attacked here, Destiny.
Yes, I'm feeling attacked by the fat.
But I'm just saying, like, people will make all these claims about things that they're for or against, but their behaviors just run totally contrary of that. A really funny study that I saw was people talk about like environmental change, like climate change. And when you poll people, should we do something about the environment? Then the number starts at like 92% think that we should do something. And then when you say like, will you make a $10 commitment a month to it? That number drops from 90% to like 70%. And then when you say, will you make a $100 a month commitment? It drops to like 20%. So you have all these people that will vote for these complicated ideas in polls. Well, it's like, oh yeah, I support this or I support that. Like, I want to fund our schools more. And then when politicians are like, all right, well, how do you feel about property tax? Lower that shit. Fuck you. Lower property. It's like, oh, I guess you don't really want it then, I think that that's more representative of a reality than some weird shadow corporation buying off politicians. I think politician opinion tracks like voter opinion like pretty closely. I think that's just how it works. It's just we don't want to accept that because things are so fucked. We don't really want to take responsibility for it.
The other thing about immigration is that I think Taylor presented it as there were kind of two options. We can either pay Americans a lot or pay immigrants a little. The third option is just shipping the job outside the country entirely.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't want that.
I was thinking about this today. Like how serious do I actually think the January, was it 6th? When that happened?
Yeah.
6th.
How much I really just don't think it was a big deal. That one woman did get shot.
To me. Ashley Babbitt.
It doesn't seem like,
I know that one woman got shot, but it seems like you had like maybe 30 troublemakers, mixed into a big crowd, and then they all got invited into the building. I would have went in the building.
I don't think they all got invited, and we did see them smash
for
the
sure.
window
I saw
open.
smashing windows.
It's really confusing. Like, it's still confusing because it's like a lot of people were just there because they're like, yeah, I like Trump, and then a bunch of guys were like, hey, let's go to the Capitol building.
Let's
But
get Pelosi.
the government has been claiming, they're like, well, the guys who said let's go to the Capitol building, or a lot of them were like Proud Boys guys who ahead of time were like, let's usher everybody towards the Capitol building because maybe something will happen. But there's like no like real documents of like what they wanted to happen, and like anything of like
They
it
chanted
kind of sounds like
I
they
don't know
wanted
how
to be
serious they
assholes.
They were
were.
being pissy because they lost.
They were trying to stop the vote from being ratified, right? Pence was supposed to do his thing where he made Biden officially the president.
Will cause a
and
disruption, yeah.
Well, not just cause a disruption. They were trying to prevent that from happening.
And were they like trying?
Yeah.
to
What
prevent-
mechanism though? By just like
That's
going
how.
into the
By
building,
taking
just,
over the
around?
building and getting everyone out of there, and work for a few.
Yeah, but they
hours.
got
that where
into
they
the
do it?
building, but then once they got in there, they're just like, all right, now let's.
They
just
started
leave.
looking for papers and proof of conspiracies and shit like that.
Is that where they
once
normally
got
ratify
inside.
it? Like, do they normally ratify it in the Capitol building, like the vote or whatever?
I don't know. This is like a procedure that no
'Cause
one
I'm
ever
willing to
paid
accept
attention
your-
to until that year.
I'm willing to accept what you said, but I strongly feel that that's just the media narrative that they said,
Yeah.
hey, they were doing this to stop the president, because then you can go after them for sedition and you can go after Trump for like trying to like treasonous accounts and just like, where are you coming up with that? I get that, like you can imagine that.
Well,
but
Trump did
look
want
at the
that-
crowd. Look at those
Yeah.
guys.
Trump
which
told
one
them
was
to
the
march down to the
mastermind out there?
Capitol and prevent it from happening. That's the
He also told them to be peaceful,
well, yeah, but it's like
and that
if
doesn't
I
really get talked about.
killed
ever.
my mom and then showed you all this footage of me not killing my mom, you wouldn't be like, well, there were a lot of times he didn't kill her, and that's what they're doing. They're showing all this footage of the people who didn't shit on the walls and steal the lectern and go in Nancy
I like to
Pelosi's
poop on the
office
walls.
and whatever.
Keep 'em up.
That doesn't mean it didn't happen, and it doesn't mean just like the moments that they were innocent, or they're like, oh look, no one did anything. Here's footage of them obeying velvet ropes.
Yeah,
I guess. Look, I
But
think
the
that at
idea,
end
like,
of the
there
day-
is one, like, I get what Kyle's saying. Like, the more video footage I see of it, the more it's like, yeah, there are a lot of videos of just like fucking sunglass wearing in their Twitter avatar goobers and flags, like just kind of walking in because the cops are letting them in.
I know, and it's muddied the narrative. Like
Yeah, that's why I didn't want those videos out
But
there.
how is it any different from any other like protest? Like, yeah, protests get violent and stupid and they break shit. And yeah, you probably can say like, okay, we have to give you more intense charges because it was inside a government building with a bunch of like, politicians were in the building at the time or whatever else. Their safety was threatened.
nobody
Fine.
cared when all those McDonald's, Burger Kings were getting burned down a couple summers.
Well, that's what I'm
before that.
saying. Is I'm like,
When every
I don't
dollar
think
store on a corner was lit up. Like,
You'd have to
Capitol
give me some
building's
like
a
real
bigger deal than a
evidence.
Wendy's, though.
not to me.
No,
you know
not
where,
at all.
You know where I'm
Well,
welcome at?
Right.
You know where I'm
because
welcome
As a fat
Wendy's.
man, the
I walk
Wendy's
into
is
Wendy's,
far
I
more
treat it like
sacred than the halls of
Okay.
Congress.
I'm not even allowed
Wendy's
in that
needs
Capitol
protection.
building. They'll
Yeah.
shoot me if I go to the wrong part. I go into Wendy's though. Mr. Dave Thomas's legacy lives on. Okay, they don't
Mhm.
cut corners there. That's why the burgers are
Amazing.
square.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. They,
No,
I
They don't
definitely
cut
am.
corners.
Like, I don't.
You
Would that
drag
mean that
Wendy's
they
into
always cut corners?
It's easier to feel
burgers
bad
are
for
square?
like a business owner's business and livelihood being destroyed
No,
than it is
cutting
like
corners when you
seeing
go
a
around.
government building get
Like through the
their windows
grass.
broken and shit.
I hear you, and I definitely understand where you're coming from. It's not how I felt though. Like when the fucking Capitol went down to like protesters, I was like, what the fuck? I thought this area was better protected than that. I thought we could like rally serious forces if anyone attacked Washington.
Yeah, I didn't realize the
DC.
I thought
Capitol
it was
Police are
finally
like
happening.
kind of
But
like,
it didn't
oh,
realize
God.
that like fucktards with flag spears could take literally spears were like the weapons they had, and
Spears?
they took over the Capitol building. Yeah, they brought flags with pointy tips and shit like that. It's not like you could argue it wasn't even a weapon, but it you
Yeah,
know,
flagpoles.
They had flagpoles. Okay. Yeah.
flagpoles with pointy tips.
Lots
Like
of them have
They
them.
were like the Zulu. Goddamn.
yeah,
They're like the Zoom.
no, but I'm trying to say like the
It just
tip
seems like
was-
such a stretch.
There's a metal tip on it, almost like a bow. Not like a
They
bow,
formed
like
a
an
fist.
Did
arrow.
anybody get speared?
What I'm saying
think
is
they
they
beat the shit
weren't
out of one of
good
them
weapons.
cops.
I'm not saying they were like the fact that the Capitol could be taken over with primitive weapons,
Yeah.
spears, and
Yeah.
shields they took off of cops and shit like that.
Sure.
It made me feel like suddenly my government's not as big a deal as I
If
thought.
a
it was.
mob of that size wanted to take over that building, they would have taken over that building.
Now
Like,
they were
did.
done- they're-
you could have
they were-
bursted through and like
No.
like they were
No.
They did
You don't think
burst
so?
through.
Yeah, some of them did. It seems like most
What
of
did
them
they
just got
burst
let
through?
in.
That's like saying
Bulletproof
you invaded my house
windows. They
because you're in
knocked
the
them into
foyer.
the shield.
But
Wait, what?
okay, but the bad people, the everybody else is barricaded in the back behind real doors and guns, right? That's how the Ashley Babbitt lady. I'm surprised y'all know her name because I just
They took
give
over
her this
that room, by the way. The one that she wanted to go through. They eventually took. Like they did win the protest.
I guess they must have. Well, then they had to retreat because you can't push a man with a gun.
Yeah,
They
that's
did.
true.
Yeah, I guess one guy with a gun felt like he couldn't take on 6,000 people pushing their way in.
Probably
I
didn't
mean,
want
I'm
to just open fire on a crowd
I
indiscriminately.
got
only had
18 in
16
here.
rounds
Let's go.
left.
He took
I don't
out that
fucking
one
care.
dumb bitch.
You
and
come
he
down
said,
the-
all right,
no,
I've made my point.
Here's how I felt about it. I felt
Yeah.
like that building is full of people that don't like us, who are our enemies. All those representatives who we just talked about how corrupt and
Agreed.
awful they are and self-serving they are. There's nobody in there that's on my side. They represent corporations, foreign interests, their own pockets. That's what they represent. Not me in the slightest. I'm not even allowed to vote for some reason. Voting's not a right if you can
Good
take it away.
point. Yeah.
So, I know that. I don't want that.
Well, when
I
you
don't want
talk
that.
about
That
like the
wouldn't
corrupt
happen.
people lighting their own pockets, Trump is
Sure.
his family are not innocent of that at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's,
but
he's definitely
he did it
in
as
the
a
mix.
private citizen, like the rest of us. Like they're fucking.
He did it
cheaters.
as the president. No, he had people
Okay,
stay in
well-
his hotels. They would rent rooms they didn't even need to line Trump's pockets.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
sure.
true.
Like they all do fucked up shit. They are
I don't
all
like that
they are
either.
all out for themselves.
You were
don't like
disgusted a
Trump.
minute ago, and now that it's Trump, you're like everybody
Yeah,
does
when Trump
it.
does
No,
it, it's
it's-
funny.
it's-
so
It's
okay.
funny. It's cool when Trump does it.
No,
it's a whole
no,
different
I don't think
thing.
anyone
I'm just
said
trying to stay in this one thing over here and not into.
January.
I'm not
6th
trying to
protester,
circle to
because all
Trump
those
and make
people
a-
are bad except Trump.
No one's saying
I'm
that.
just trying not to get distracted away from
The
key
difference
issue,
is
which
that
January
Trump
6th
likes
and
Kyle,
the people
right?
who are going
Yeah,
inside that building.
all the,
He's a
all
good
the other
news
politicians
guy.
hate Kyle, but Trump loves him.
Yeah.
It's like this: you watch an internet fight, right? You
Okay.
immediately
Right.
figure out who the good guy is, right?
Not always.
Right.
Like,
the
all
one
right,
who likes
let's
you
see
the
if there's a good guy and a bad guy. Let me figure out who's wearing the white hat, who's wearing the black hat. This guy pick on that one? Did this guy
Right.
assault someone first? Was
Yeah.
he a bully? Is this guy too big to be even approaching this? Like you weigh and measure and you figure out who's the good guy and the bad guy. And when I saw that January 6th stuff going on, it was not clear cut. It wasn't clear cut. You know, it's like people in there are fucking assholes. People in there are awful. I hope and that building, all that shit in it, has nothing to do with me. I don't care about your flags in your building, your old pieces of paper. I wish they burned it all down. I don't care. I don't care about that stuff. That's not my stuff. That's not our stuff. That's their stuff. They would wash the floors if we walked in there.
That CVS has insurance, man. You can just burn it to the ground. It's not mine.
Meanwhile, CVS, the doors open for me when I approach. I'm
So
like
that
a
does
king in
belong
a
to you.
CVS.
That's
You have
for you.
$50? Oh my God. Yes, sir. No, sir. They give
You
me
feel
receipt
personal
from the
ownership of the
virus.
CVS. So you don't want to see it be harmed.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, the more it seems, or like the more videos I see, the more it's like this doesn't look like what was put to us a few years
Well,
ago.
it
about
seems to me-
women.
I
They're
think the
doing
thing
on
that-
purpose, though, they're releasing these videos selectively, bit by bit. Like they're not. Oh, and they also keep releasing it to they released it to Fox News and let Tucker Carlson tell you about the videos, and then you're like, it's because they have something to hide. Really?
But the
When
government's
the
not
Republicans took the
communicating.
House and gave
Yeah.
the videos to Tucker Carlson, who has something to hide?